Thank you. Well, that was a bit of a wake-up call. This is why I think it's so important for us to understand where China's policy is going. And I think Professor Fu and Robin, you made it very clear about externalization and internalization of the environment. This is Chinese policy, and they're now aligning, after thinking over it a number of years, about actually how to do it. Professor Fu, you were very kind to also illustrate to us some of the practical problems on the ground. For example, the different ministries, they don't often align very well, but they'll have to in the future. Alicia, you showed us some possible examples from Europe that we may learn from. And Robin, you summarized it so well, so clear. And you made a call, and I think UST will take this on board. You know, that army of accounting and other professionals that really need to get on board if we're going to be able to meet the Chinese policy plans that have already been kicked off. They're not being discussed, they're actually being rolled out in the next few years. Some questions, comments, and perspective from the audience? Veronique. The mic is coming, just.
Oh, thank you so much. It was brilliant presentations and on time, which is wonderful. I'm really stunned by Robin's presentation because I'd never heard of it. And how come we haven't heard of it?
It's been brewing.
I mean, maybe it's been discussed in Chinese language media, but I haven't heard of it. And it's an entire paradigm shift. My question is from what you know, what is the business community doing in China to adapt to this huge paradigm shift in accounting and finance?
The government has been publishing papers periodically, as I showed the main papers there, and the main framework for what they have been wanting to achieve was put into position by January 2017, and the target is to achieve that green accounting, if you want to describe it as that, by 2020. I think that's optimistic, but it's a highly complex project, this, to achieve. But they will try and achieve it by the next National Congress, which will be in 2022. So it must be completed in this current National Congress. I know about it because of a relationship I have with someone involved in, who's one of probably the most senior practitioner of carbon trading in China. He's done 450 of the 1,500 CCER programs in China. So I've kept current on it because of my relationships. The government is trying to get people ready for it. They fully know that they're creating this army. I mean, one of the things that Christine I surprised with a statistic was that by the end of 2014, there were 2.1 million environmental inspectors in China, which is more people in the army of environmental inspectors than there were in the PLA, than soldiers were in the PLA. So China really sees this whole environment as a national security issue. And the key thing is that they will do everything they possibly can to make this happen. And I'm not fully answering your question. I'm just showing you that they are well down the road on thinking of this, but I don't have the full details to be able to answer your question.
Yeah, I try to give my perspective as well, because the national carbon market program, you know, that maybe start this year, but now we have many details, and suppose the allowance allocation still not decided, which is the main obstacle of the the first market. So I want to compliment is that why the price of the carbon price, how to evaluate our carbon price. Now you suppose it's 30 yuan, but in Guangdong carbon market is the biggest of China among the 7. Pilot program maybe is around 10. MSCI are below 10 yuan. So I expect what does the price reveal here? Because in the economics perspective, it's the marginal abatement cost, right? In the long term, if the liquidity of the secondary market is very nice, it can reveal our marginal abatement cost. But still, our secondary market, is not very not liquidity. So, what's the problem here? So just now you mentioned not much institutional agent to take part in, not many companies because only 200 enterprises there. So so what we focused is not the stock market. It's not the stock market. This is the carbon market. So we focus on the reduction of the market, just the primary, the allowance reductions. We don't focus more on the liquidity of the market. So I think if our price still cannot reveal much, because if the liquidity is very material, it can have the price discovery, and this is our real marginal abatement cost, and this is the basic. If it control our health, right? If it control our visibility, right? If the scenery or a lot of this kind of external benefits, it should be much higher. So this is what the price of our carbon market now is quite different from the real commodity market or the stock market. Another one is the risk of the green finance. I think except for the environmental risk, another is our policy is uncertainty is also a kind of risks. Just now, as you mentioned, we change our allowance every year, not like the European country with 4, 5, or 4th year. We change every year, and different pilot program have different method. So you cannot predict, or how I should update our technology, or I just keep the savings of our allowance, or just sell. I don't know, because I don't know what is the future policy. So I just keep it. I don't want to take part in it, because the price is also low. So why do I take part in the market? So this is one of the main reasons why our don't very liquidity of our secondary market, because the policy uncertainty is, I think, is the most expected in this kind of market, because we know the environmental market is a kind of government-oriented market. It's not a real market. It is an artificial market. So we should know this is the very key point. So.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'd like to add something, maybe play the devil's advocate based on what you just said of a government-driven market and what are maybe the consequences for Hong Kong, if I may. And what I'm trying to say is that from what I hear, given the contrast, put it this way, so Veronique saying, I've never heard of it either, but then we have as many efficiency, I can't remember the word, this 1.3 billion, not billion, hopefully, a million.
2.1 million energy, environmental.
Okay, so you see, the point is, and you were saying that there's massive uncertainty, that the price is not reflecting the true value, etc. So I'm just saying, is this a domestic market at the end? Because if we're thinking of the role of Hong Kong, we have to realize that it has to become a market. Otherwise, it's very hard to see a role for Hong Kong, meaning it has to become a market whose standards are understood, and we can of course help people explain those standards, but if they're ready to be explained, meaning if they're ready to be shared, and eventually if there is such need, because when you mentioned Juma's 85, I believe, % private financing needed, my question would be, how much of that is expected to be foreign financing? Because from what I hear, hard to see that, yeah, because you would have to aim at, I guess, maybe it's what I heard about the green accounting is very experimental, interesting. Maybe the rest of the world will follow. But what if they don't? What if you are, in a way, stuck in a kind of a two-world kind of thing where it's very hard for you to attract, frankly, foreign investors? Maybe you don't need them. Maybe you don't want them. I mean, that's it, because that is key for Hong Kong. only if this is meant to be kind of a global endeavor, meaning I'm here doing this, others may follow, the reality is people will understand, and it'll be low uncertainty, market driven. If not, I think we may have to lower our expectations as to what what we can do on this as Hong Kong, I'm saying. But, just, yeah.
Valid points from Professor Fu. There are 7 pilot markets, there are 7 carbon prices in China. They're going to try and conform these carbon prices to a single unified price. That was what I tried to say, but I said it in one sentence. How they will do that, if you go back into history, the example should be taken from the bond market from the 1980s, how there were different prices in local bond markets, provincial bond markets, and then they were not automated markets. And so a lot of people went in by train from province to province, and they bought, and then they arbitraged the price differences. We're going to have a lot of arbitrage of price, but it's going to take till 2020 to achieve that. In terms of, listening to what Alicia has just said, I hope I haven't created confusion in your mind that I took one particular element of green finance and that you then go away with the impression that that covers the whole of the thing. I'm trying to alert you that this is a very broad subject and that you have to be aware of many aspects of it. One aspect is going to be the accounting. And I applied it to one particular thing, which was the carbon market. That accounting is going to go to other things. They're going to bring it in for water. They're going to bring it in for other rights as well. But it's going to be profitable because of these new property rights are going to be assets that go into the balance sheet, and therefore you're going to see all your asset liability ratio changes. You're going to take on contingent liabilities because of the potential penalties of not conforming. There are many different ways to look at this thing, but nevertheless, I'm just pointing out there is big change and there is big opportunity. The opportunity is to arbitrage the price. The opportunity is to be able to provide the services and the understanding to be able to take this thing forward.
Well, what I suggest, because we have to end so you can have your coffee, and then we have the next panel, is perhaps the engineering school, the environment school, the business school, we should all get together and have another conference, particularly on this particular point. What are the opportunities? What are the risks? The last thing I just want to say is, having been an observer of Chinese policies since the 1980s, what we kind of track is China kind of puts out a goal, and then the rest of us go completely crazy to say, no, they won't make it, this problem, that problem. And then you kind of see over time, gradually, these things are gradually done. It is a policy-led country. The government is always dominant. The government does not actually believe in open free markets. It has to be greatly regulated. And it's now come up with a new set of framing of how China is going to clean up the environment in China. And it's a national security issue. Therefore, it's kind of bringing up all these new ideas: internalization, externalization, pricing carbon, and they've now put out a target of where they think China's carbon price is going to have to go. And they don't quite know yet how you're going to get there. But what I'm saying is, we see this in all the other policies that have gone in the last 40 years. They will start working on it to say, how do I get there? There'll be a lot of adjustments. I think the policy risk is we're not entirely sure about the time, but we do see China coming out and saying, okay, I had thought that in 2017 I can get the national emissions trading market up and running. No, I cannot. I'm now going to go down to just one sector. But this is part of the adjustments. But they've kind of thought further, haven't they, in terms of how can China now make these emissions into new property rights? And if they're new property rights, would this actually spur the private sector, these companies, to actually comply? So it's a new mixture of punishment and rewards that we haven't quite seen before. So whilst we don't know where it's going to go, it's kind of laid out there. We're going to see more green accounting and all that coming through. But for those of you who I think have been working on the sustainability path for a long time. You know, or you will remember that China talked about green accounting, green GDP 20 years ago. They were not able to put it out there because it was genuinely difficult to think through how to do it, but they never gave up. And the think tanks and at the NDRC level, they always still work on it. And we're gonna come and see it. It's gonna come. So the last thing I wanna say is, being in Hong Kong, we're not quite sure about the internationalization, what might be a role for Hong Kong. But for those of us who are here, we wanna ride on that boat. And especially, I think, for academic, intellectual, professional thinking, we are gonna serve China. At what point it's ready for internationalization, right? We need our international friends to work closely with us, but we can already see the tremendous challenge to clean up the country and the opportunities. So I think, thank you very much, all three of you, kind of really giving us this summary of views we need to know, and hopefully we can get together quite soon again to have another session focused on what we've just learned. Thank you very much.